Team Dark Strategies. We're headed into another battle report. 1,000 points. Space Marines, Ultramarines versus Orks, Bad Moon Clan Culture. This particular battle is going to be a little bit more of a narrative setting as far as the terrain goes, just because it's not, the typical kind of symmetrical deployments and terrain placements. This one has a little bit more of a theme to it. It's a big manufactorum building kind of complex that outside of it is a very kind of open no man's land approach, and then you have a lot of heavy terrain in kind of the middle of the board. So a bit lopsided as far as the deployment goes, but it's okay to play those type of games every once in a while because, you learn things as far as, do you utilize the terrain? Do you not utilize the terrain? Sometimes having too much terrain or line of sight blocking can be a hindrance. So depending, it'll be interesting. A very shooty army versus an assault army. We'll see how this works out. This is a practice game. Essentially, I'm going to be playing my son. He's going to be fielding the Orks, and I'll be doing the Space Marines. Practice games, especially when you're dealing with, somebody that's new into the hobby. It's a good way to train them as far as the rules go and tactics and stratagems. But essentially, I'll be, kind of telling him what to do as far as where to move, where to shoot, what stratagems to use at this time, just because I think it'll help him learn the lingo a little more. And practice games are good to play. It's not only good for them to play, but it's also good for you to play because you can, a more seasoned player can still test out tactics. They can still test out different stratagems, and it can still see how units interact with other units. The armor contemporary, I'm very curious about that even with the Orks. I know a lot of Ork players are concerned about that -1 to their AP against Space Marines and UK Space Marines and Adeptus Astartes. It is very concerning, and I want to see the difference it makes in this battle. So you can use it to both train somebody into the hobby, a new recruit, and you can help yourself as far as learning these rules. But I wanted to get this videotaped, one, just to talk about practice games, and two, maybe be fun to watch. Orks versus Space Marines, that's kind of a classic matchup, and I'm very curious to see how two of these armies kind of face up on this cool looking board. So, and one other thing about practice games, it not only for son or daughter, if you have siblings that want to play, get them involved. Do some practice games, and it's okay to tell them, all right, where should we move? Let's move over here. Where should we shoot? Let's move over. Let's shoot over here, and then tell them why we're shooting over here, because it's tactically the right way, because we want to clear off an objective or whatever it may be. Or son, daughter, siblings that want to play, just new recruits. If you have friends, adult friends that just, hey, what is Warhammer 40K, and how to get them into it, because it can seem daunting a lot. You look at the big rule book and you look at all the models. You can say, hey, come over, play with some of my armies that you have. I'll teach you the ropes. I'll teach you, how to move, all that kind of stuff. So they're not doing it on their own. It's just a good way to do this. So this is a practice game. We'll probably have a few more practice games on the channel, kind of in between more competitive type of games. So I'll always label it as a practice game. So let's get into the battle report. Orks versus Adeptus Astartes. For today's battle, we are going to get into the tabletop review of the terrain and deployment and objective markers. So for today's battle, essentially it is more of a narrative setup. It is not necessarily tournament based, where you have symmetrical deployment of ruined buildings for cover and all that. So it is one side heavy with this very large, look at that, very large manufactorum building. But as far as the deployments, they are somewhat even as far as the openness of deployments. So we're going to get into that shortly. The terrain itself is all Games Workshop terrain, aside from the custom silos here that are made from GW bits and PVC pipe, and then our glorious statue is raised up on this platform. That's just a custom-made statue with some GW bits as well. So that is terrain. It'll do the the Imperial industrial structures. Will give the -1 to shoot through. The ruins will be +1 to save, and so on and so forth. So that is the terrain itself. Mission, we are going to play out of the chapter-approved Warzone Nakman Grand Tournament, and we're going to be playing on page 18 and 19 if you want to follow along. Pop that book open. We're playing the mission Deliverance. So that has the take and hold, of course, and secure landing sites for the primary objectives. And you can see from the deployment here, it is table quarters. So let's get into the deployment. Let's flip off the lights, and we'll get into what we have. So the green glowing triangles are the perimeters of one deployment here. So one will be all along this line with a circle diameter in no man's land for no deployment there. And then on an angle diagonally, we have the other deployment, which is, again, it's pretty open as far as the other side, but you do have a huge line of sight blocking. And that works both ways. I mean, you can't shoot out of these because there's no windows on these bottom levels. So theoretically, it still should be somewhat of a matched game. I would think the Orks are going to probably want to win Defender and pick this side just because of the mass amount of vehicles out here, but we'll see. With the large road down the middle, there is a very danger zone as far as breaking cover and getting across this gap. So it will be interesting to see how the armies go and battle across it. As far as objectives, we have 5 objectives, kind of like an X in the middle. The very center is right below this entrance to the gateway. We have one out on the road. We have one very close to the corner of this manufactorum building on the right here, and then left is just outside of that small building. And then tucked away back here, which is probably the most lopsided one, is tucked away underneath these industrial structures is the 5th objective marker. So that will be the game board tonight. Super themed. I'm looking forward to playing on it. Should offer some really cool visuals and some cool photography moments of our models fighting over it. So let's get into the armies. 1,000 points, Orks versus Space Marines. 1,000 points, Ork, Clan Culture, Bad Moons, ready for action. This is what we're bringing tonight. Combat Patrol Detachment. In the HQ slot, we have Weird Boy Zappit. As the Warlord, he has Might is Right. And for the relic, Scorch Gitbones, which will help his psychic powers. In the psychic slots, we have Smite, of course, the Crunch, and the Jump, which hopefully he'll use that to send 22 Ork Shooter Boys with a Boss Knob and Big Choppa into the Space Marines battle lines. In the other troop section, we have 10 Gretchen, which they will jump on objectives and try and stay alive. Behind them, we have Mr. Clank and Mr. Clunk, absolute favorite Ork units in the Codex today. They are each equipped with 4 Dreadclaws. We have to get some more of these for sure. In the middle, we have a unit of 4 Burner Boys and a Spanner Boy in a truck. Used to take a lot of Spanner Boys, or Burner Boys, back in the day, but the Burner Boys are still okay. If they can get up the field, that's why they're in that truck. Maybe they can utilize that Burna action. And behind him, we have Daka Jet. He's equipped all Super Shooters maxed out, so he's got the ultimate Daka. Hopefully he can fly up behind that Manufactorum wall and hit those Space Marines from behind. On the left side, we have a Battle Wagon. Now, this isn't the Bone Breaker. Just in this points battle, we couldn't get the Bone Breaker in, but we do have a standard Battle Wagon with a Death Roller, and it's still pretty deadly with that setup. So, and it looks pretty sweet too. And then to the left of them, the meat wagon, we have 3 Meganobs. They're equipped with Combi Scorchas, and more than likely I put those in the Teleporta pregame just to get them backfilled quicker. So that is 1,000 points. Orks, Bad Moon Clan Culture. Let's get into the Adeptus Astartes. 1,000 points of Adeptus Astartes, Chapter Ultramarines. We are also bringing a combat patrol detachment. In the HQ slot, we have a lieutenant. He's equipped with the power sword and his relic. He actually switched out his boat pistol with the Purgatorus. So that is HQ. In the other HQ slot, we have a Primaris Chaplain. Primaris Chaplain has Litany of Hate and also the Recitation of Focus. He also took, for 1 command point, Relic of the Chapter to get another relic, and his relic is Seal of Oath. So that should actually pick a scary orc unit on the tabletop before the battle begins, and rerolling hit and wound rolls is a good thing for him. So that is usually something I take for the Chaplain. Hopefully we'll use it effectively in this battle. In the troops section, we have 5 standard Primaris Intercessors, all with bolt rifles. In the heavy support slot, a unit of 5 Hellblasters with the Plasma Incinerators. Good unit to have, scary unit, so hopefully they can punch some armor. We also have another squad of Eliminators over here on the left, and they are equipped with their Las Fusiles, 3 of them. And then we have, to kind of go against the Death Dreads, we have 2 Primaris Dreadnoughts. They're equipped with Stormbolters on their chest mounts, their Power Fist, the Underslung Onslaught Gatling Cannon, and then the Macro Plasma Incinerators. So they should do some damage, both shooting and in combat. And then lastly, we have a unit of 3 Inceptors, which great units to come down, really. And, the amount of shots they take out, they can usually clear off an objective. So that is 1,000 points. Space Marines ready for action. Let's get to the battle. Let's do roll for attacker and defender. Orcs first. Orcs roll 3. And Space Marines roll a measly 1. So, Orcs will get to pick if they want to be attacker or defender. Let's get to it. Alright, so since the Orcs won the roll-off for attacker and defender, the Orcs chose to deploy over there in that corner of the table. And the Space Marines then are on this side of the table. So let's go over Space Marines deployment first. We have our HQs. They're kind of center to everyone, passing out those auras. Both the Lieutenant and the Chaplain are in the middle there. Up above the Chaplain on that Ultramarines container, we have the Hellblasters. 5 of them ready to pour fire into as many things that come out of this Manufactorum as possible. And then kind of central to the deployment, we have the 2 Redemptor Dreadnoughts holding down the left and the right. On the home objective, the Intercessors are tucked in there behind that shipping container there as well. So out of line of sight mostly, and we'll see if they break cover and proceed upfield. In the Eliminators spot, we have them on this Imperial industrial structure, and they have lines of sight down the left, down the middle, and down to the right. So that's actually a good spot for the Eliminators. Pretty pleased with them, plus they look pretty sweet up there. So yeah, that is Ultramarines deployment. In reserves, we have the unit of Inceptors, so they'll be coming in where they're needed. Coming over here to the Orc deployment, we're going to start on their right flank. We have the Battle Wagon. Battle Wagon convoy style. We have the battle wagon up front, and then the truck behind him with the Burna Boys in it, and they're going to be heading down this corridor here out into the battlefield more than likely, because that Death Roll likes to crunch things. And then tucked away behind this building, kind of in the shadow of the Manufactorum, we have the 22 boys with the boss knob, and they're encircling their warlord, Weird Boar Zappit. So he was probably, if he can get that jump off, he's going to throw those 22 boys out into the battlefield. Up here, I'll kind of take a top view here. We have Clank and Clunk. Base size, they can fit out this doorway, so they're going to probably just sprint out there and just destroy things. Hopefully those Hellblasters can hold them at bay. And then at the very back corner, nice deployment as far as angle. The Daka Jet can pick left, right, straight. So he's going to fly up the field and do his Daka action. The Gretchen chose to take the left flank here. They're more than likely going to pop through that dark Manufactorum way out onto this objective here. So that is Orc deployment. In the Teleporta, we do have 3 Mega Knobs. Always a scary unit, especially with those Cobby Scorchers and Power Claws. So that is it. I'm excited to play this. Let's get into the roll for first turn. All right, rolling for first turn. What do we have for the Orcs? Orcs rolled a 3. Let's see if those Space Marines can do it. Oh, Space Marines get first turn. So we'll see. We'll see. Actually, it wouldn't have been too bad to have the Orcs take first turn, but we'll see what the Space Marines can do. Top of turn 1, in the command phase, my chaplain did try to do a litany of hate onto the Hellblasters, but he did fail his recitation. But I spent 1 command point to get Wisdom of Ancients, the Redemptor over here on the right flank. I spent the 1 point to cast Wisdom of Ancients on the Hellblasters behind him here. So Rites of Battle, they'll be able to re-roll hit rolls of 1, so they can do their supercharge plasma incinerators. And then in the movement phase, the only model to move was the right flank. Redemptor Dreadnought moved up his full inches here and still can shoot off shots at Clunk over there through the gateway, but he's headed off towards this right objective marker. And he's doing that because really on the right-hand side of the Orc left flank, there is Clunk, and then there's the Gretchen. So I think the Redemptor, theoretically, if the Hellblasters can get some shots off on him, the Redemptor should be able to hold down that right flank for now, at least. So that is movement. Let's get into shooting phase and see what happens. In the shooting phase, the plasma incinerators from the Hellblasters targeted Clunk over through that doorway there. You can see he's gone. Hellblasters, with their Wisdom of the Ancients, did end up bringing Clunk down to 2 wounds, and then the right Redemptor Dreadnought here piled everything else, all the shots into Mr. Clunk, and Clunk fell. Did not explode, but Clunk is no longer with us. And on this side here, the Eliminators up on the industrial structure here shot through at Clank through that doorway and brought him down to 2 wounds, which is unfortunate for the Death Dreads. And then the left flank, Redemptor Dreadnought, did overcharge his Macro Plasma Incinerator into Battle Wagon. Brought the Battle Wagon down just 2 wounds, so it is down to 14 wounds, I believe. Yep, so Battle Wagon did get hit by that. We did roll 1 dice for our overcharge, our supercharging, so Redemptor took a mortal wound on that. And then he did fire his onslaught Gatling cannon across into Clank over here and brought him down by 1 more wound. So Clank is sitting on 1 wound left. Again, unfortunate for the Death Dreads. I actually thought with shooting through that cover -1 to hit that would have been a little bit more detrimental to the Space Marine shooting, but alas, sometimes it goes that way. So pretty strong overall first turn by bringing down Clunk on the right there, and then Clank is mortally wounded on the left. And to chip away at the battle wagon, not a bad thing. So let's get into Orc movement phase and see if they can retaliate. End of turn, bottom of turn 1, movement phase and psychic phase. We did that all in one together. As you can see, the Orcs have moved out of the Manufactorum at high speeds. So what happened? The battle wagon over here, he advanced along with the truck behind him. Really great advance. It was a 12 plus 6. I mean, it was an 18-inch move there for the battle wagon, and then right up behind him was the Burner Boys in the truck. So that actually was good, and now they're claiming that objective. The poor, badly wounded Clank here did shuffle out of the Manufactorum with 1 wound remaining just to sit on that center objective. Not a bad thing to do. And then the Daka Jet chose to take my left flank, so it flew a slight angle, but flew pretty close to a 60. It was about a 55-inch move on the Daka Jet. So the Daka Jet can spray some fire over onto whatever unit he deems worthy. On the Orc left flank, wasn't much left over here. The Gretchen did advance, if you can see them into those shadows there. They are at the corner of that building, so they do score that objective. So they are on 4 of the 5 objectives for the Orcs. So that is a good movement phase, I think, for the Orcs. In the psychic phase, unfortunately, we did try to... the Weird Boar Zappet did try to jump, but perilled on a doubles ones, decided to re-roll that, and then roll a 6 for the warp charge. So unfortunately, the jump did not go off. So that is that. We're going to get into some shooting. Not much to shoot. We have some Daka from the Daka Jets, and that's about one Orc shooting phase. The only thing really to shoot, since the battle wagon and truck advanced and there's no guns on Clank over there, is the Super Shooter loaded Daka Jet. He, 36 shots into the intercessors behind here. Lots of hits, lots of wounds. Unfortunately, that Armor of Contempt rule is nullifying that -1. Truly saved the Space Marines there. They took 1 wound. So that is the end of turn 1. Let's get into Adeptus Astartes, turn 2. This is essentially, I think this is the turning point here. If the Adeptus Astartes can neutralize Clank and the battle wagon, we're definitely going to be able to pull out here and I think actually get a victory early on. But let's see what happens. Turn 2, bottom of movement phase. In the command phase, the chaplain did try to recite Litany of Hate. Unfortunately, he rolled a number 2 again, so he did not get that Litany of Hate off. Unfortunate, but oh well. In the movement phase, Redemptor Dreadnought on the left flank here moved up to take on the battle wagon. Hopefully he can chip off a few more wounds before he goes in there with his power fist. The right flank Dreadnought was going to go off and get that right objective to take on those Gretchen, but looking at it, there just wasn't a way in to that building. He can't fit through the door here, and he'd have a long way around to get to these Gretchen. So he decided to take on Clank here and switch tactics and attempt to get that center objective. And then the intercessors then moved out behind that green container here and are going to go off and face those Gretchen because of infantry. Hellblasters stayed put. They have plenty of target-rich environment. The chaplain did decide to move down and get that objective, and then the lieutenant shuffled over here just so he wasn't the closest unit on his left flank here, just because if there is boys to jumping around, you never know. So that is that. Let's get into the shooting phase. End of Space Marines shooting phase. Not too bad. We did soften up the targets. Both of the Redemptors unloaded everything they had into the battle wagon and brought it down to 5 wounds. So theoretically, I don't want to speak too soonly here, but theoretically, that charge should go off, and then we should destroy that battle wagon in the charge phase. And then ultimately, I'd like to get that charge off too, to get in there and take Clank down and score that objective. Ultimately, if I can get in there then, and they're still alive, we can contest at least and deny the Orks primary objective points. So the rest of the turn actually was the Hellblasters shooting over into the Daka Jet. They only brought 1 wound off of it, and then the Eliminators also shot. Only 1 shot got through, but more wounds. So the Daka Jet is down to 8 wounds left. Not too bad. It was kind of really the only thing they could shoot at that point. I did forget to mention in the movement phase, the Inceptors did land backfield here, so that was pretty good. They ultimately shot all their dice and brought 5 of the Orks down. This mob reduced 5. So let's get into the assault phase and see what happens. I don't think I'm going to charge here. I'm going to let this happen. If the boys decide to take them on, so be it. If not, they might to jump out, which leaves that weird boy kind of left out in the open. So we're going to wait and see there, but let's get these 2 charges off. So the charges did go off, and you can see there's a lot of yellow armor missing on the battlefield. The left Redemptor Dreadnought did choose. I was contemplating who to go first with because of the counteroffensive. Ultimately, I did choose the left Redemptor here, and he did his 4 attacks. He did use a command reroll to get. He missed twice, so he got three hits, and then ultimately just pummeled that battle wagon off the table. It did not explode, and then of course the Orks did use counteroffensive and did score many hits. He brought the Redemptor down to 7 wounds before Clank then was punched down. So Clank is gone, and that really hurt the Orks' backbone. I know they have the Mega Knobs coming in, but we shall see what happens. It could swing, but knocking the Orks off these objectives was a big punch, and there's really not much left for the Orks to counterattack. But Orks like a tough fight, so let's see if the Orks can bring some casualties down. I mean, once Primaris Marines start falling and they do die, there's not a lot on the table to begin with. So if we can do a turn 2 counterattack here, we'll see what happens. Orks just finished their movement phase, and over here on the left flank, the Orks are struggling for unit size, so the boys do have to stay on this objective just because if we can get some points in the objective side of the game, we might close the gap as far as getting a win. So the Orks did shuffle forward, though, to get in the full Daka range of the Inceptors, so hopefully they can shoot at least one of them down, if possible. The weird boy, if you can see him back here in the dark recesses of this building, he moved forward to do, within 6 inches of the center objective, to do Warp Ritual, which is actually a really good point scoring secondary objective. So if he does this once, he gets 3 points. If he does it 2, 7, and then 3, 12. So that's actually a pretty good thing. And he seems somewhat safe over here. There's no windows in these buildings, so he could theoretically sit on that and score some points. So that's what he did. The Burn Boy truck, seeing what we should do with that. He did pull out, and he is within 3 inches of this objective. So we are contesting the left flank objective here with the Burn Boys. They are going to stay in. If you get out right now, I think they're just going to get shot to bits. So at least make the Ultramarines, kind of crack open that truck first, and we'll see where we go from there. Over here, much needed reinforcements for the Orks. The Mega Knobs came in, and their plan here is to combi Scorcha the intercessors, and then hopefully get that long charge off. I mean, they are, over 9 inches away, so they're going to need that 9-inch charge. But it's not impossible to do, and with the Redemptor at 7 wounds remaining, I think we might be able to crack it and destroy that, which would be a great Necron victory to get that center objective as well. And to kill a Redemptor, that's always a good thing. The Daka Jet, kind of a wobbly model syndrome over here, but so we're propping it up a little bit, but it still could fit as far as where it landed. So it's going to get some shots in, hopefully on those intercessors too, possibly knock them off that objective. So that is Orcs movement phase and essentially psychic phase, because we're doing the warp ritual with the Weird Boy Zap It. And let's get into the shooting phase and see how much damage we can do. Orc shooting phase went pretty good, actually. It wasn't a horrible round of shooting. The Scorchers did perform well and removed 2 of the intercessors, so that was beneficial. And then the Daka Jet put all his shots into the intercessors as well and brought additional 2 down. So again, the Armor of Contempt rule was saving them. I think without it, that last sergeant would have been removed, but I think that's what that rule does. It makes units stick around just 1 turn longer. So that intercessor is around. He will have to take a morale check to see. I suppose if he rolls a pretty high, then he may flee from the battlefield, which would be beneficial. But the chaplain still holds that objective, so even if he falls, it would be okay. On this side of the battlefield, all the Daka from the Shooter Boys, I was hoping for a kill. We only did wound 1 of the Inceptors, but we'll take it. It's not horrible. So let's get into the charge phase. The big charge here is the Mega Knobs. Man, if they can make that charge roll and get into that Redemptor, that would be epic. So let's see what happens. Orc charge phase, look at that. An 11 was rolled for the Mega Knobs unit, and they got into that Redemptor. Now, the Redemptor is down to 2 wounds. It would have been dead if it didn't have that special rule of reducing damage by 1. But I'm, pretty excited to see the Orcs get that charge off and do a lot of damage to that Redemptor. The Redemptor did attack back and did swat down 2 of the Mega Knobs. I mean, that Power Fist is nasty when it comes to wound dealing. So 2 Mega Knobs have died, but there is a Mega Knob tucked back in there. You can see him through the bulwarks there, but he is contesting now that objective. This is contested, so the Ultramarines were pushed back to only score the 1 objective. So that was really good for the Orcs, I think. Could have been a little better if we could get that kill, but can't complain. Can't complain. The Orcs are fighting back as they should, because Orcs love a tough fight. So let's get into the Ultramarines, turn 3, and see what the Ultramarines will do. Now, with me playing the Ultramarines, I think I can counter this counter-offensive, counter the counter, still, just because I do have a lot of scary guns available to me yet, and at least 1 Redemptor is pretty healthy. So over here, I'm going to try to see if I can't interrupt this warp ritual. That is tricky. He is tucked back in there, but Inceptors can move might not be this turn, but next turn I might be able to get into that weird boy down there. But that's a lot of boys to get through before taking him down. So let's get into it and see what happens in top of turn 3. And real quick here, surprisingly enough, though, the sergeant rolled way too high on his morale check, so he actually fled the battle, which is unfortunate. So that was another good, essentially counter-offensive by those orcs by taking out my one and only troops choice. Now again, the chaplain is still on the objective, so that's at least beneficial to the Space Marines, but well done to the orcs for taking down the troops. Ultramarines movement phase. The left flank Redemptor, the healthy one, he shuffled around back of the truck, still holding that objective, but just wants to get a little closer to the midfield here. In later stages, he might head out into the Orcs territory, but that's what happened there. Over here, the Redemptor Dreadnought did move back out of combat with the Meganob, just because the Meganob would get first swings here in this particular fight. And as an Ultramarine, he can move back and shoot, so that is all right to do. The Hellblaster stayed put, the Eliminator stayed put. In the command phase, the Chaplain finally did get his Litany of Hate off on to the Hellblasters, so that'll benefit from re-rolling hit roll, so that is a good thing. And then swinging around here, what to do with the Inceptors. The Inceptors actually use their big move here to move up onto the industrial structure to shoot down, and then hopefully next turn get into that weird boy. So depending on how many I take down in the shooting phase, I may still charge down onto these orcs to try and wipe them, but that boss with Big Choppa can be a little scary too, so we'll see. But that's actually a good placement, I think, for the Inceptors. Happy with that movement. So let's get into shooting phase. I think this could be a bloody one for the orcs, and we'll see what happens. And then shouldn't be too much assault phase. We might assault into these Burner Boys if I can't bring that truck down. So let's see what damage the Ultramarines can do. Finish up the shooting phase. As you can see, there's some models missing off of the Ultramarines section of the board. The Fallen Back Redemptor Dreadnought actually did roll 2 6s there, and with his Macroplasma Incinerator, and just melted that Meganob, so he is gone. Over here, this Redemptor melted that truck as well with its Plasma Incinerator, and then the Onslaught Gatling Cannon took off the last wound off that truck. The truck did not blow up. I didn't have additional CP for that Kareen Orc stratagem, so the Burner Boys did get out. They were going to get out a little further afield here, but to contest this, actually they're controlling this objective now just because model count. We'll have to make that Redemptor kind of come in here and make its swings to see if it can't bring down 4 of the Burner Boys. So they're there to be brave and see what they can do. Over here, and one more thing, I made a mistake last in the movement phase. I put the wrong card down. It wasn't the Litany of Hate, it was the Recitation of Focus that went off, because the Recitation, or the Litany of Hate, that's for melee combat. So Recitation of Focus was add 1 to the attack's hit roll. So that helped the Hellblasters shoot at the Dakajet, which brought it down to 2 wounds, and then one of the Eliminator shots got through and took off that last Dakajet. It did not blow up as well. So that is gone. And then over here, the toughness 5 of the Orcs against these Inceptors guns, forced a wound. It wasn't a horrible thing, but I did bring down 4 Orc boys off of this mob, so I'm still contemplating on whether I should charge into them. I might to force that morale check even worse, because if I do, the Orcs don't have the any CP points to keep them in the fight, so they will have to take their morale check. And losing 4 already, and I know in combat I could probably bring 2 or 3 more down. So we shall see on that one. I'll have a think, and then we're definitely going to assault into the Burner Boys to try and claim that objective. Because at the end of this turn 3, the second primary objective is secure landing sites. So you score additional points for each of the no man's land objectives. So that would be beneficial for the Ultramarines to get these Burner Boys off there. So let's get into the assault phase, and we're probably going to be wrapping these turns up now, just because there's not a lot of model counts on the board. End of charge phase and morale phase for the Ultramarines. Made the charge into the Burner Boys. Only brought one of them down though. The Redemptor did fail in hitting a lot of them, and then in return, the Burner Boys and the Spanner Boy did 1 wound remaining to that. So that was unfortunate for the Ultramarines. The Orcs do claim that objective. In this fight, I was surprised I didn't bring any boys down in the charge off the industrial structure. And then ultimately, the boys did bring down 1 Inceptor and wounded another one. The Boss Knob made a lot of hits, but again, that Arm of Contempt rule, it would have dropped another Inceptor, but alas, we made our saves. In the morale phase, the Burner Boys are fine, but the boys did fail their morale phase, so 1 more ran away, and then in addition, just another 1 ran away. So that wasn't horrible. The boys are still stuck in. That's the way they like it. So that is the end of Ultramarines. Top of turn 3, let's get into the Orcs and see how much more of a counter punch they can do. But I do think the Ultramarines are probably going to start taking this one away. So let's see what happens. Turn 3, Orc phase. The Burner Boys actually stepped out of combat just so they don't get pummeled in the assault phase with that Dreadnought. So they'll more than likely will die next turn because of all the shots coming into them. But for this turn, they're going to score points on that objective, and then nothing here. But the Weird Boy is doing another Warp Ritual, so that'll score us 2, which will be 7 points. So the Orcs actually might take the win just with points. So that's it for the shooting phase. There was only 1 pistol shot here from the knob. Nothing happened there. And then the assault phase, you can see the Inceptors have been brought low. 1 Orc Boy died, but then that Boss Knob finally finished off the two. So that was nasty. Yeah, that was nasty. Like I said, I think the Orcs do have a good chance here. Let's get into top of turn 4, Adeptus Astartes. Space Marines turn. Chaplain did recitation of focus on the Hellblasters. The Chaplain then advanced and rolled a good advance roll to get on the center objective. This Dreadnought advanced as well to get onto that objective. And then this left flank Dreadnought, Redemptor Dreadnought, moved over 8. And we do have, just along the corner of that building, we do have shots at the boys. So hopefully that onslaught gang clan and the guns can maybe clear those boys off. That would be beneficial. And then I'm hoping we swing in here and neutralize that Weird Boy. But yeah, so let's get into shooting phase. We have a lot of shots coming into the Burner Boys to clear them off, hopefully. And then, like I said, the boys over here. So real quick, and we'll get to the bottom of turn 4 shortly. Alrighty, after that movement phase, the shooting phase, Hellblasters and the Eliminators eliminated the Burner Boys, so that cleared up that objective. And then this Redemptor Dreadnought did a very good job of bringing down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the boys, and then the morale just took them out. So that is another cleared objective. Well done for Redemptor on the left flank here. We did actually lose engage on all fronts, the points for that, but we scored a healthy 6 for the secure landing sites, which was good. And Oath's Moment scored us 3. So let's get into the Orks. Really, the only thing the Orks are going to do is Weird Boy is going to do his Warp Ritual to get the 12. That will be a big points boost for that, and then we'll see what the Space Marines can do to counter. So I'll be interested to see how the points roll out on this one, but it's been a bloody battle on the Orks side, and then we'll get into end game stuff. So let's get to it. So just a quick, no movement in the Orc phase. In the Psychic phase, the Weird Boy did Warp Ritual, so that'll score him points. And the Gretchen are still on that objective. So ultimately, with the primaries, the Gretchen scored 4 to be on that one. The Weird Boy scored, the max of 12 for that, which is awesome. And then no engage on all fronts, and then secure landing sites. The Gretchen scored another 4 for that. So that was the Orcs' turn. Let's head into turn 5 and see if this Redemptor can take out that Weird Boy. But other than that, I think the Gretchen will be untouched in this battle. So good on the Gretchen. Let's get to turn 5. So at the end of Space Marine's turn 5, the Redemptor did get in range of, in line of sight of the Weird Boy, and the Weird Boy is no longer there. It actually did take the Macro Plasma Incinerator and the Onslaught Gatling Cannon to finish him off. So that is that. The only people left on the board are the Gretchen. So the Space Marines actually scored a large amount. Primaries, we have we're on 1, 2, 3 objectives, so that was 12, and then the secure landing sites, that was a big 8. Oath's Moment scored us, so I think we scored 20 in that phase, which was good on the Ultramarines. That may have knocked the win over to their side. So let's get to the Orcs real quick. The Gretchen are gonna stay put. They're probably digging a tunnel under that Manufactorum building over there. So they'll score their 4 points and another 4 points for the secure landing sites. So let's get that is essentially the end of the game. So let's get to end of game recap, and we can talk over what we learned in this particular battle. All right, so we just finished our Space Marines versus Orcs battle report practice match. The Adeptus Astartes did pull out the win here. It was a bloody match when you just look at the kill count. The Adeptus Astartes, I think, lost a total of 8 models, and they were all infantry models. So versus the Orcs basically being whittled down to just the Gretchen left, and the Gretchen were so tucked into cover that it was. They were going to stay alive. Lucky for them, right? But the Orcs did put up a fight. I think a couple times in the battle I said, oh, this is the turning point of the Orcs, or of the Space Marines taking over the Orcs. But they kept counterpunching. They came out of that Manufactorum building right away. As far as deployment goes, having the Orcs choose the Manufactorum building, I'd like to see a mirror match to see the deployments mirrored, so the Ultramarines would be in the terrain and the Orcs would be out of the terrain, to see how much of a difference that would have made. I think with the Orcs being stuck into that terrain, being a close combat army, they had to get out, they had to come out and fight. So gunning up the table with the Battle Way and then the Death Dreads, and then losing the first turn, having the Incinerators and the Death Dreads fire into Clank and Clunk and basically cripple those 2 big units. One fell and then one was down to 2 wounds, I think. So that was detrimental, I think, for early Orc game. If the Orcs got first turn, they would have been out of the Manufactorum in first turn, and may have, I think the results would have been very similar, but there'd be more targets out for the Ultramarines to shoot, so they, the saturation of the target-rich environment, you can't bring everything down. So some of them would have been alive theoretically, and then got their charges off. Who knows? I mean, that's 40k, right? I mean, the first turn is always that. Can you do enough damage to kind of put your opponent on the back foot? That's just the way the game is set up, has been set up for quite some time. So yeah, the Orks, they used the cover as best they could. -1 to hit, I thought that was going to save the Orks a little more early on, but it didn't. But then tactically, yes, they weren't playing a kind of kill your opponent game. They started to play a little bit more of an objective game as they saw their units die. So having that truck come out and the Burnham boys do that kind of contesting and then grabbing, and they did score a lot of points. Without them doing that, this would have been an even more lopsided points game. So good on the Orks for sticking in the fight. I think Orks do have a tough time a little bit more in the current 9th edition phase. I do think they're still they can still win games though. They with their vehicles, the Death Dreads I think are still great. The Battle Wagons, the Bone Breakers, the Daka Jets are still viable. Green Tide, not so much. I mean, maybe in some matchups Green Tide can work. I just don't. Maybe I don't play Green Tide enough anymore to know that. So maybe I we should probably practice that a little bit more. But I think the Orks at 1,000 points can work. But they're a little bit more of a finesse army. Weird saying that with Orks, but yeah, the Space Marines on the other hand, to talk a little bit about them. I mean, this particular 1,000 point Space Marine army is usually kind of what I field, at least in my little mini meta of playing, against Chris, John, my son. It is gauged more towards the Death Dreads, the heavy armor, and then the absolute just atrocious firepower as far as Hellblasters and Eliminators and Macro and Plasma Incinerators. So it's a very stripped down, fine-tuned elite force that is designed to kill armor and to kill monstrous creatures. So they did well. And then the armor contempt rule, truly nullifying -1 AP it's again, I've said this before in the last battle report, it's not something that's in your face, wow, but it's something that makes Space Marine units stick around longer, which story-wise, fluff-wise, it makes sense because they're absolute beasts on the battlefield. So in objective games, the gaming aspect of Armor of Contempt, set aside the story part of it, is it allows them to survive 1 turn longer. It really does. I mean, instead of having a unit wiped, there's a unit with 1 model left or 2 models left or a couple wounds left, instead of just being gone. In an objective game where you're sitting on an objective, you want to be there. Even if you're crippled and down to 1 wound or down to 1 model, if you're there, you're there. So Armor of Contempt is aces for the Space Marines. It's kind of brought them back into, at least in my mind, a little bit more survivable, because they are an elite army. They don't have a lot of model count on there are other more elite armies out there, Adeptus Astartes and things like that, but this kind of brings them back into the fold, I think, which is a good thing for Space Marines players. And Adeptus Astartes and Adeptus Sororitas and the Heretic Astartes. That Armor of Contempt rule is a great bonus to them. So MVP of the battle, I put the Redemptor Dreadnought out here. Again, without the Redemptor Dreadnoughts for the Space Marines, I mentioned it in the Army overview. They're great at shooting and they're great at combat. They're just a tough unit to crack, and with that -1 to damage, they stick around even longer, not even with the Armor of Contempt rule. So Redemptor Dreadnought for the Space Marines, I do think he earns, actually both of them earned their points back in this game. For the Orks, I kind of want to give it to the Gretchen. I mean, the Gretchen scored the Orks a lot of points throughout the game. But I think I'm going to give it to Weird Boy Zappit here. Him kind of giving up the hold to jump, throwing his boys out there early on after it failed the first time. With the secondary objective choice, and I normally don't take Warp Ritual. It seemed like a weird one, but in this particular setup where the center objective was tucked in at, to be within 6 inches of that center objective, the Orks could be in those buildings, and without the windows back there, it was a good thing to keep them in cover. So when he moved up, was it turn 2, into that ruin and did started doing those warp rituals, I mean, it scored to 12 points. Again, that was another 12 points that if I didn't take that, say I took something a little more assault oriented for the secondaries, there would have been a even larger gap between the end game points. So Weird Boy Zappit gets the MVP for the Orks. So like I said, I hope you enjoyed this battle report. It was fun to play. It was cool looking on this terrain setup. But ultimately it's a practice game. So, teaching my son where to move, where to shoot. Essentially you are kind of playing yourself when it comes down to it. But practice games, that's okay. You can still learn things. First off and foremost, whoever you're training, whether it be your sibling or your son or daughter or just a friend that's interested in 40K, it's good to have these type of games to not only train them, but it helps you, learn the game a little bit more. Every game that you play, you learn. At least it should be a goal for yourself, is to every game that you play, pick something up, whether it's a unit interaction between, how easy is it to shoot off a Docket Jet versus, eliminators or whatever it may be. Learn some secondaries, try some different secondaries that you don't normally pick, or anything really. So these practice games I think are good. I wanted to film this again. I think we covered it pre-game here, but I wanted to film this to talk about practice games, but also have an enjoyable match to watch. So we'll probably do a few more of these practice games interspersed into a little bit more of the competitive games. Chris is coming back. We're going to probably play some Tyranids, the new codex, shortly. So yeah, let's get into it. What am I working on? I'm working on a Gladiator tank for the Ultramarines currently, and then we have the Nakman terrain that we're almost finished up painting. So a lot of projects as always, but fun to do. So let's check back in to the next battle report. Hope to see you. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed watching the progress of the channel so far. It's been fun building this channel and seeing the amount of people that have subscribed already. That's pretty awesome. And getting some views, over 1,000 views on some of these videos is definitely motivating to keep this going. So see you around. Next battle report is incoming shortly.